It all started with a cruel laugh. The kind that sounds harmless at first, but carries a hidden edge. Ethan Reed didn't know that a simple bet made by his friends on a Friday night would change his life forever. The bar was loud, the neon lights blinking lazily above their heads as his best friend, Tyler, smirked and said, "You wouldn't survive 1 hour on a blind date with someone real. No filters, no glamour, no games." The others chuckled, tossing their cash on the table. And before Ethan could even process it, the challenge was set. They dared him to go on a date with someone chosen by them. A random girl from a dating app. No pictures, just words. It was supposed to be a joke, something to laugh about later. But destiny has a way of turning jokes into lessons, and that night, fate was quietly rewriting Ethan's story. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and love that changes people from within, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps spread these stories of hope and humanity. Ethan was 28, handsome, confident, and used to attention. He came from money, lived in a high-rise apartment overlooking downtown Chicago, and worked as a marketing executive at one of the city's top firms. To everyone around him, he was the guy who had it all: charm, style, and confidence. But behind that carefully crafted image, there was emptiness. A hollow echo left by a life of shallow connections and forgotten promises. He didn't even remember the last time someone looked at him and saw more than a paycheck or a pretty face. So when he agreed to the bet, it wasn't because he cared about winning. It was because somewhere deep down he was tired of pretending. He was tired of laughter that felt fake, nights that ended in loneliness, and friendships built on ego rather than understanding. The date was set for Sunday evening at a small coffee shop called Harper's Corner, the kind of place where the air smelled of roasted beans and rain, where dreams and regrets often met halfway. He almost didn't show up. Standing outside the cafe, rain dripping from his umbrella, Ethan wondered if it was worth it. He could just text Tyler, say he'd gone, and walk away. But something about that quiet little cafe drew him in. The warm glow through the window, the faint music playing inside, the thought that maybe, just maybe, something good could come from this. He stepped inside. And that's when he saw her. Sitting by the window, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, was a girl who looked nothing like the women he usually dated. She wasn't dressed to impress. Her dark hair was tied in a loose braid, a soft gray sweater hanging slightly off her shoulder, jeans faded with time. Her face was pale but gentle, framed by strands of hair that seemed to dance with the light. She looked real. Not polished, not staged, not filtered, just quietly beautiful in a way that made Ethan's heartbeat change rhythm. Her name was Lila Monroe. From the first moment, there was something different about her presence. She didn't rush to impress, didn't giggle nervously, didn't flatter him like others usually did. She just smiled, calm, genuine, and said softly, "You look like you'd rather be somewhere else." It caught him off guard, her honesty, her ability to see through the mask he wore. Ethan laughed, a little embarrassed, and said something about long work hours. But she didn't press further. She just listened, truly listened, as if every word he said mattered. As the evening went on, he found himself sharing things he never told anyone. About his mother who died when he was 15. About his estranged father who turned success into a wall between them. About how he felt lost in a world that rewarded appearance over truth. Lila listened quietly, her eyes soft and filled with compassion. And when he paused, she told him about herself. She worked part-time at a bookstore and volunteered at a children's hospital 3 days a week. Her younger brother, Mason, was born with a congenital heart condition, and she'd spent most of her life learning what sacrifice really meant. "I don't have much," she said, "but I try to make what I do have matter." There was no pity in her voice, just quiet strength. Ethan noticed her hands trembling slightly when she lifted her cup, and later, when she reached for her bag, He saw a small scar running down her wrist. He wanted to ask, but she smiled faintly and said, "We all have stories written on our skin. Some we hide, some we don't." When he left that cafe, Ethan didn't realize he was walking away from the version of himself he used to be. He told his friends he went. They laughed, and Tyler said, "So, did she pass the test?" Ethan just stared at his drink and muttered, "I think she gave me one." They didn't understand, of course. How could they? Days turned into weeks, and he found himself visiting Harper's Corner again and again. Sometimes Lila was there, sometimes she wasn't. But when she was, it felt like the world slowed down just enough for him to breathe. They started spending evenings together, walks by the lake, long talks under streetlights, moments where silence spoke louder than words. And somewhere in those quiet evenings, Ethan realized he was falling for her. But love has a strange way of testing sincerity. One night, as they sat near the lake, Lila confessed something that made Ethan's chest tighten. She told him she had been diagnosed with a chronic illness 2 years ago, an autoimmune disease that left her weak, in pain, and uncertain about her future. "I didn't tell you before," she said, "because people usually walk away when they hear it." Ethan didn't speak for a moment. The city lights shimmered on the water. The cold breeze carried her words into the dark. He could have said something shallow, something comforting, but he didn't. Instead, he just took her trembling hand and whispered, "I'm not everyone." That night, something in him changed forever. He began showing up at her hospital visits, helping her with errands, bringing books to read together. He learned what love really looked like, not in grand gestures or expensive gifts, but in patience, kindness, and showing up when it mattered most. The man who once mocked sincerity now found peace in it. His friends noticed the change. Tyler, the same one who made the bet, laughed one night and said, "Man, I don't know what spell she's got on you." Ethan smiled and replied quietly, "It's not a spell. It's what happens when someone finally sees you for who you are." Months passed, and Lila's condition worsened. She started losing weight, her energy fading, but her spirit remained strong. She told Ethan one day, "You were supposed to go on a fake date. I was supposed to be a joke. Funny how the universe writes better stories than we ever could." He couldn't reply. He just held her hand tighter. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled in the distance, Ethan received a call that shattered his world. Lila had been admitted to the hospital again, and this time it was serious. He rushed there, heart pounding, and found her lying pale but peaceful, her eyes half open, a small smile playing on her lips. When she saw him, she whispered, "You kept your promise." He leaned closer, tears falling freely now. "Which one?" he asked softly. "The one where you said you wouldn't walk away." She closed her eyes after that, and for a moment, the world stood still. Ethan stayed there long after visiting hours ended, his hand still wrapped around hers. The girl who was never supposed to matter had become everything. The bet that started as a joke had turned into the most meaningful chapter of his life. Weeks later, when he returned to Harper's Corner, he found a small envelope tucked into the corner of his favorite seat. Inside was a note written in her delicate handwriting. "Ethan, if you're reading this, it means my story has ended, but yours hasn't. Don't let this love fade into memory. Live it, in kindness, in truth, in the way you treat people. You once told me you didn't know what you were meant for. Maybe you were meant for this, to learn what love looks like when it's real." Ethan framed that letter. He left his high-paying job soon after and started a nonprofit foundation named the Lila Hope Project, supporting children with chronic illnesses. Every year he visited the cafe, sat by the same window, and watched the rain. The same rain that once led him to her. He still wore the bracelet she gave him, a simple string with a tiny silver heart. It was frayed, old, almost falling apart, but he never took it off. Years later, when people asked him how he started his organization, he would smile faintly and say, "Because of a blind date that wasn't blind at all. She saw right through me." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps bring more stories of love, redemption, and second chances to life. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe that one unexpected person can change your life forever? And as the screen fades to black, Ethan's words echo softly. Sometimes the people we meet by accident are the ones our hearts were searching for all along.